From the playground to the lunch table, egg salad sandwiches have always gotten us by in a pinch. But can we transform this humble sandwich into something ultimate? Fannie Farmer published the first recipe that we know of. That was defined by tender white bread, hard-boiled eggs mashed up with mayonnaise, bread smeared with butter, and a piece of lettuce for crunch. That's cool and all, but what's missing? Texture. I bet you didn't think an egg salad sandwich can be ultimate, but you haven't seen this egg salad sandwich. All right, so the egg. The egg is all about texture. I pulled inspiration from the flan, the sweet, tender custard. We actually removed the sugar from it and it delivered on that creamy texture where it doesn't ooze out the side of the sandwich. You wanna make sure it's well incorporated and it's no longer ribbony. Now we're gonna be adding some milk and cream to it. That's gonna help as a tenderizer, as well as that fat is gonna add a little bit of richness. So the straining is gonna help remove any chunks of white that are still remaining. But you can notice that it still kind of has a milky color to it. That is the air that's still incorporated in there. So we can set this aside for about 15 minutes or so. That bubbles are gonna rise to the surface and we can skim those off. But in the meantime, we can prepare our pans. We're gonna be using 2 loaf pans. Each of these are gonna create 2 patties. So this is gonna make 4 sandwiches. I like to give it a little bit of a crinkle. Makes it a bit easier to work with. Honestly, this is probably the least fun part of the recipe, but it's very, very important though, because you don't want to make any holes in the foil because the egg will seep through and be beneath it, creating a little bit of a weird unmolding experience later on. So this probably looks like a crinkly mess because it is. What I do to help smooth it out, a little more cooking spray with a dry towel, spread out all those wrinkles. I like to trim away the excess foil. Boom, both of our molds are ready. Lined with foil, as smooth as we could get it. Let's divide the custard evenly between both of them. So I like to use a scale for this. It's a lot more consistent instead of eyeballing. Now we're gonna cover the top. This is important because we don't want to develop a skin during the baking because you're actually steaming inside there. All right, so these are ready to go in the oven now. Typically with custards, you're gonna be baking them in like a bain-marie of sorts inside of another pan with water coming up to the side of where the custard is. Usually that's done because people are baking in a hot oven, like 350 or even 375. We're gonna be using a lot lower temperature at around 225 or so, and so that's gonna give more of an even, consistent baking without overcooking the eggs. If you overcook the eggs, you're gonna start smelling like farts or sulfury compounds in the air. That's where the egg is gonna have lots of bubbles inside of it, as well as it's gonna start to souffle and collapse. So low temperature precision cooking is key. Let's check on our eggs that have been baking in the oven. That is perfect. So nice, beautifully smooth layer on the top. It's fully set in the middle. That is just what we want. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna transfer this to the fridge to chill for at least an hour. It'll make the process a lot smoother. All right, let's portion the eggs. These have chilled for an hour, nice and firm. So to unmold this, just gently lift the edges to make sure it's not stuck for whatever reason. So here, don't just immediately rip it open. This egg is still tender. So I like to rip the corner. Feels like it's sticking, just grab it with your thumb, peel away. Okay, let's flip it over. Could you just portion this up right now, slap it between 2 pieces of white bread with some mayo and eat it? Yes, it would be really good, but we're going after the ultimate egg salad sandwich, so we're gonna bread this up. So with portioning, the dimensions is key. Checking it out. Boom, we're gonna get 2 nice portions out of this. So one key visual to look for is there should be very, very minimal air bubbles inside your custard. If you're seeing a lot of air bubbles inside your custards, that means you overcooked it. You're probably gonna be smelling it. Very sulfury, not very good. All right, the breading. So the breading has been inspired by katsu. Katsu typically breaded and fried pork or chicken. We're gonna be doing it with the egg patty. That's what's gonna make it ultimate and crispy, crunchy on the exterior. So that starts with a 3-stage breading: flour, egg, and breadcrumbs, or panko. I like to put this on a tray because when we go to bread later, it's gonna get a little messy, right? We got more egg, so we're just gonna whisk this until smooth. Last but not least, the breadcrumbs, panko. Right now, the panko is a little too coarse for my liking. I like to grind it up a little bit or beat it up with a rolling pin because that's going to create more surface area and more of the breadcrumbs are going to be able to adhere to the outside of the egg patty when we go to fry it. So let's bread these puppies up. So we're going to start with the flour first. We're going to be working one at a time. Be gentle, be gentle. Tap off any excess flour. We're going to go into the egg. So let's use one hand for the egg, one hand for the breadcrumbs. That way we're not making a gigantic mess. So I like to shake it around. That's going to get the crumbs on the side of the patty. You don't need to rush through this. Take your time. Try and work as clean as you can. All right, here we go. On the fence if I want to do double breading. Should we do the double? Let's do the double. That's the daily double. All right, time to fry. We got our frying station all set up. Oil at 375 degrees Fahrenheit. We got our pre-breaded egg patties. We got a rack for them to cool on as they come out of the oil. We're gonna season them up with some KFC spice blend. Go to chefsteps.com for the recipe. Let's start frying. So I recommend frying one at a time. The spider. I don't actually want to flip these, it might damage them, so I just kind of shake it and keep it off the bottom of the frying pan. That's where it'll actually start burning. So this will only go for about 2 to 3 minutes. All we're really doing is trying to get the crust to a golden brown color. In that short amount of time, it will heat the egg up. So when deep frying, it's actually important to pull it just before it reaches the color you want because it will carry over. So that's perfect.
1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, we just fried up our 4th patty. Dust it with our seasoning. These are hot, super crispy right now. We're gonna transfer them to a low temp oven to keep warm until we're ready to assemble shortly. I like to use shokupan or milk bread. It's slightly sweet, it's tender, has a really tight crumb. So those are the key characteristics that we're looking for. That's why we're not just using any run-of-the-mill white bread like Wonder Bread, which is kind of gummy in my opinion. It's also baked in a Pullman pan, so you're gonna get more consistent cuts and shapes that are really desirable for our egg salad sandwich. I like starting with a whole loaf like this too because I'm in control of the size of the slices. So if you want our recipe for this tender, amazing milk bread, go to chefsteps.com. I like to trim away the crust. I don't need it. I want this to be a little pillow when you're holding on to this amazing sandwich. The key thing, this is gonna be roughly the dimensions of our custard. It's about 3.5 across. Once it comes out, we're gonna trim the egg, so we're gonna lose a little bit on the edges. So it's gonna be about 3 by 3 inches for the patty. So let's check our bread with that because we want it in that same ballpark. Boom, 3 inches by 3 inches. That's just the size we want. Egg salad sandwiches, they're typically not toasted, but I toast the inside of the sandwich on one side. That way we're adding more texture and more flavor from the buttered edge. I don't toast the exterior because I like to feel the pillow as a first part of the biting experience. So we're gonna start with butter. Do a lot of butter. So if you have some spots that are a little more blonde, you can add a little more butter. Look, that's looking great. Woo! All right, so we're looking for a nice even golden brown color. We're gonna transfer those to a tray, toasted side up. All right, the old reverse toast bread. You can leave these out. You can even put them in a low temperature oven to keep warm. Any egg salad sandwich that's worth its salt has pickles in it. They're adding texture, a crunch, as well as acidity to cut through all the richness of tons of mayo packed in there. So instead of just taking any old pickle, I decided to do a little bit of a riff on that because I'm also used to having egg salad sandwiches with a little bit of celery seed. So to combine both of those, I decided to do a quick pickle with shallots and celery. So it's like a relish of sorts. So we're gonna start off with distilled vinegar. We're gonna add a little bit of sugar to it. It's gonna sweeten it up a touch. All right, a little bit of salt. We're just gonna mix together the vinegar, sugar, and salt until dissolved. This recipe is a part of our egg salad sandwich recipe on chefsteps.com. That will continue to dissolve as we slice up our celery. Okay, slice up our shallot. One thing that's kind of cool is when I was looking up the original recipe in the States from Fanny Farmer in her book. She adds onion puree. In the recipe, it says like scrape the side of the onion. I don't know what that means, so I'm just gonna use shallots. Last but not least, I'm gonna add a little bit of whole grain mustard. Huge fan of mustard, the acidity, the texture, the bite. If you do make this in advance, like a day or two before, the color will dull. The flavor will still be great, the texture will be great, but it won't be as green. I like to serve it really cold because the contrast of the warmth of the fried patty is really, really nice. So it's time to assemble. But there's one ingredient you want to cut at the very end, and that is the lettuce. We're going to shave it really thin so the whole leaf doesn't come out when you go in to bite. Make sure you cut down to the stem. This is the crunchiest part of the lettuce. All right, let's pull our fried patties out of the oven that's been keeping warm. Still nice and crispy. Toasted side up. We're going to start with the mayo. We're going with Kewpie. It's going to be a more umami-packed mayo, a lot more savory. Now for Dijon, this is going to give a little bit of a kick and acidity to the sandwich. It's going to help cut through all the richness. So if you look at the classic egg salad sandwich from Fanny Farmer, it's described to have a piece of crisp lettuce on there. I bet that lettuce is fighting for its dear life to bring any crispiness to that sandwich. We're just going to shave up the lettuce really thin. That way it's going to eat a little bit better where it's not going to slide out when you bite into it. Instead of doing mashed up hard-boiled eggs with mayo, we have our beautiful deep fried egg custard. They go right on top. Now we got our pickles with shallots and celery. This is gonna add some crunch, fresh flavor, and acidity, again, to cut through all the richness from the mayo as well as the egg custard. All right, here we go. All right, the final part, the reveal. Slicing it right in half. Okay. Sweet, check that out. Save about equal parts bread to the thickness of the custard, counting the breading. Equal parts pickles and lettuce by volume that were shaved up. So, dude, come try it out, this egg sando, and let me know if it's better than what you remember from growing up.
The toast on the inside and the chewy bread is super freaking good too. I like that.
Which one do you want?
This one requires more chewing in a good way.
All right, there you have it. That's the ultimate egg salad sandwich.
Mmm. Oh my God, this is crazy good.
Gorgeous, gorgeous.
Subscribe to our channel and visit chefsteps.com for more tips, recipes, guides, and tools to help you level up in the kitchen.